In a small, secret military base buried deep in the forests of Earth, a group of scientists was about to make a discovery that would change everything. They had been tasked with cleaning up old equipment, forgotten since the Cold War. As they rummaged through dusty crates and covered machinery, one scientist, Dr. Sarah Lane, stumbled upon a strange door hidden behind piles of old boxes. Curiosity sparked in her eyes as she called her team over. "Come look at this!" she exclaimed. The other scientists gathered around, their faces a mix of confusion and excitement. They pulled away the boxes, revealing a large metal door with a rusty lock. It looked ancient but somehow powerful. After a few moments of trying, they managed to open it, revealing a dark tunnel leading underground. With flashlights in hand, the team ventured into the tunnel, hearts racing. As they walked deeper, they began to see outlines of something massive. They reached a large chamber, and as their lights illuminated the space, their jaws dropped. There in the center was an enormous supercarrier, a ship unlike any they had seen before. Its sleek design and heavy armor suggested it had been built for war. "This is incredible," whispered Mark, one of the engineers. "I can't believe it's still here." Dr. Lane's eyes sparkled with excitement. "This ship could be our greatest weapon against the Galactic Empire." The team quickly set to work. They examined the supercarrier, noting its advanced weapon systems and high-tech controls, all covered in dust from years of neglect. They couldn't believe what they had found. The supercarrier was not just a relic, it was a testament to humanity's forgotten power. As they worked, they shared stories of what they knew about the Galactic Empire, a ruthless force that had been threatening Earth for years. The team had always felt helpless, but now they had something to fight back with. Hope began to fill the air. "Imagine if we can fix this ship," Mark said, grinning. "We could take the fight to them." Days turned into weeks as the team worked tirelessly. They gathered tools, parts, and anything they could find to restore the supercarrier. Dr. Lane took charge, organizing the group and ensuring everyone stayed focused. Each member of the team brought their skills, and together they began to breathe life back into the ship. They faced challenges along the way. Some parts were too damaged to repair, and others needed to be replaced entirely. But the crew refused to give up. Each small victory fueled their determination. As the ship slowly transformed, so did their spirits. One day, while working on the control panel, Mark noticed something unusual. "Hey, look at this!" he shouted. The others rushed over to see what he had found. The control panel flickered to life, displaying a holographic map of the galaxy. The team gasped in awe. The ship had advanced navigation systems that could guide them through the stars. "This is amazing," Dr. Lane exclaimed. "We can reach the Empire before they even know we're coming." As they worked, they also prepared themselves mentally for what lay ahead. The thought of facing the Galactic Empire was both thrilling and terrifying. But with the supercarrier as their weapon, they felt ready to take on the challenge. Finally, after weeks of hard work, the supercarrier was ready for its first test flight. The team gathered, excitement bubbling in the air. They climbed aboard, each person filled with hope and determination. The engines roared to life, shaking the ground beneath them. As the supercarrier lifted off, the crew cheered. They were flying again, flying with a purpose. Dr. Lane looked out at the vast sky, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. They had found a hidden power, but they knew the real challenge was just beginning. The Galactic Empire would soon learn that Earth was no longer defenseless. This was only the start of their journey, and the surprises waiting for them in the galaxy were unimaginable. They were ready to fight back. Earth's hidden supercarrier had awakened, and it was time to show the Empire what humanity was capable of. With the supercarrier fully restored, the crew felt a rush of excitement and fear. They had uncovered a powerful weapon, but they needed to be ready for what lay ahead. Dr. Sarah Lane gathered everyone in the control room, the heart of the ship. "Listen up, team," she began, her voice steady. "We have something the Galactic Empire doesn't expect. But we must prepare for battle. We have to train hard and learn to work together." The crew nodded, determination shining in their eyes. Each member had their own skills, and now it was time to combine them. They formed groups, pilots, engineers, and strategists. Everyone had a role to play in the upcoming fight. Mark, the lead engineer, took charge of training the crew on the supercarrier's systems. "Let's start with the controls," he said, pointing to the large glowing panel in front of him. This ship is more advanced than anything we've ever seen. We need to master it. As the days passed, the crew learned quickly. They practiced flying the Supercarrier, maneuvering through the sky with growing confidence. Dr. Lane watched as the pilots became more skilled, performing loops and sharp turns. They were learning to navigate the ship as if it were an extension of themselves. Meanwhile, the engineers worked on weapon systems. They tested laser cannons and missile launchers, making sure everything was in perfect order. Each successful test brought cheers from the crew, lifting their spirits. The Supercarrier was a marvel, and they were proud to be a part of its revival. However, not all moments were easy. The crew faced challenges, like when one of the missile launchers malfunctioned during a test. It fired unexpectedly, causing a loud explosion that shook the ship. Everyone rushed to assess the damage, their hearts racing. "What happened?" Dr. Lane shouted, her voice rising above the noise. Mark examined the launcher, frowning. "It's a wiring issue. We can fix it, but we need to be careful. We can't afford mistakes now." With teamwork and determination, the engineers quickly got to work. They fixed the wiring and retested the launcher. This time it fired perfectly, and the crew erupted in applause. The failure had taught them an important lesson. They needed to be ready for anything. As they continued training, the crew also learned about the Galactic Empire. They studied maps and intel gathered by human spies. The Empire had a vast fleet, and they were known for their ruthless tactics. But the team was not afraid. They were united, fueled by a desire to protect their home. One evening, as they gathered for a meal, Dr. Lane addressed the team. "We have a unique chance to fight back," she said. "We can't let fear hold us back. We are not just fighting for ourselves, we are fighting for all of Earth." Her words ignited a fire within the crew. They talked about their hopes and dreams, sharing stories of loved ones they wanted to protect. Each person felt a personal connection to the mission, and the bond between them grew stronger. As the final day of training approached, they planned their strategy for the first encounter with the Galactic Empire. Mark and the other pilots developed flight patterns, while the engineers made sure the Supercarrier was in peak condition. Finally, the day arrived. The crew stood on the deck, looking out at the horizon. They were nervous but determined. Dr. Lane gathered everyone one last time. "Today is not just a test flight," she said. "It's the beginning of our fight for Earth. Let's show the Galactic Empire that we are ready." With cheers and shouts of agreement, they climbed aboard the Supercarrier. The engines roared to life, shaking the ground beneath them. As they took off, the crew felt a mix of fear and excitement. They were no longer just scientists and engineers, they were warriors. The Supercarrier soared into the sky, leaving the past behind. They were heading into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would prove that Earth was not defenseless and that humanity could rise to any occasion. The time had come to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The Supercarrier flew high above the clouds, its engines humming like a powerful beast. Inside, the crew was tense but excited. They had trained hard and were ready to face the Galactic Empire for the first time. Dr. Sarah Lane stood at the control panel, her heart racing. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice steady. "We're approaching the Empire's patrol zone. Stay sharp and follow my lead." The pilots took their positions, their hands gripping the controls tightly. Mark, the lead engineer, monitored the ship's systems. Everything was running smoothly, but there was no telling how the Empire would respond. As they crossed into the patrol zone, the crew spotted the Empire's ships in the distance. Large and menacing, the enemy vessels floated like shadows against the bright sky. The tension in the cabin grew thick. "There they are!" shouted one of the pilots, pointing at the fleet. "What's our plan, Dr. Lane?" Dr. Lane took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We need to catch them off guard. Let's split into two groups. One will create a distraction, while the other flanks from the side." The crew nodded, each member ready to do their part. They swiftly split into two groups. The first group moved towards the Empire's ships, flying directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The second group, including Dr. Lane, flanked them from the left. "Here we go," Mark yelled, excitement in his voice. "Prepare for combat!" As they approached, the Empire's ships turned to face them. Blasts of energy shot through the air as the two sides opened fire. The crew of the Supercarrier felt the adrenaline pumping through their veins. This was it, the moment they had trained for. The distraction group fired their laser cannons, lighting up the sky with bright flashes. The Empire ships retaliated, but the humans had the advantage of surprise. The Supercarrier dodged and weaved, avoiding enemy fire with skillful maneuvers. Keep moving, Dr. Lane shouted. Don't let them lock on to us. The crew worked together, communicating through shouts and quick commands. They fired back at the Empire, hitting several ships with their advanced weaponry. Cheers erupted in the cabin as the first enemy vessel exploded in a burst of flames. But the Empire was not easily defeated. Reinforcements quickly arrived and the battle intensified. More enemy ships filled the sky surrounding the Supercarrier. The crew felt a wave of anxiety wash over them. "Mark, we need to pull back," Dr. Lane ordered, her voice rising above the chaos. "We can't take them all on at once." "Copy that," Mark replied, swiftly adjusting the controls. The Supercarrier began to retreat, using its speed to evade the oncoming fire. As they turned to escape, a sudden blast hit the ship, sending the crew lurching. Alarms blared and the lights flickered. Mark quickly checked the damage report. "We've taken a hit! Shield integrity is down to 60%. Get us out of here!" Dr. Lane commanded. "We need to regroup and rethink our strategy." With a burst of speed, the Supercarrier soared away from the battle. The crew was silent, their hearts pounding. They had faced the Empire for the first time, but the victory felt bittersweet. As they flew into the safety of the clouds, Dr. Lane took a moment to assess the situation. "Everyone listen up. We fought bravely, but we need to learn from this. The Empire won't take us lightly again." The crew nodded, realizing the truth in her words. They had surprised the Empire, but they needed to be smarter and more prepared for the next encounter. As they made their way back to base, the crew shared their thoughts on the battle. They discussed what worked and what didn't, each member contributing their ideas. Together, they began to create a plan for their next clash. Despite the challenges they faced, the crew felt a sense of unity and determination. They had fought against the Galactic Empire and lived to tell the tale. The Supercarrier had proven its worth, and they were ready to rise to the occasion once more. The battle was just the beginning. They knew they had a long road ahead, but they were no longer just scientists and engineers. They were a team, a family, united in their fight for Earth. And together, they would continue to push back against the Empire, proving that humanity was not to be underestimated. After their first clash with the Galactic Empire, the crew of the Supercarrier returned to Earth, feeling a mix of fear and determination. They knew they had to learn from their mistakes if they wanted to win the next battle. Dr. Sarah Lane gathered everyone in the control room, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. "We fought hard," she began, her voice firm, "but we didn't prepare enough for the Empire's full strength. We need a new strategy, and we need to be smarter about our next move." Mark, the lead engineer, nodded. "I think we should focus on stealth. The Empire relies on their numbers, but if we can sneak up on them, we can hit them hard." The crew agreed, brainstorming ideas late into the night. They studied maps of the Empire's patrol routes and identified weak spots. They also practiced flying low and using the clouds for cover, honing their skills to stay hidden. As days turned into weeks, the crew worked tirelessly. They created new tactics for their next encounter, combining their strengths to outsmart the Empire. The excitement grew within the crew as they saw their plans coming together. One day, as they were preparing for another mission, they received unexpected news. A small group of human spies had infiltrated the Empire's territory and discovered valuable information. They learned that the Empire was planning a large attack on Earth, aiming to crush any resistance once and for all. "This is our chance," Dr. Lane declared, her eyes shining with determination. "If we can launch a surprise attack before they can strike us, we can turn the tide in this war." The crew rallied around the idea, their spirits lifting. They quickly devised a plan to strike at the Empire's supply ships, which were vital for their upcoming attack on Earth. If they could disrupt the Empire's resources, they would weaken their enemy and give humanity a fighting chance. As night fell, the crew set out aboard the Supercarrier, flying low to avoid detection. The stars twinkled above them and the hum of the engines filled the air. Mark piloted the ship with precision, guiding them through the dark sky. "Remember, we stick to the plan," Dr. Lane reminded them. "Stay focused and stay quiet." The crew nodded, their hearts racing with anticipation. They approached the Empire's supply route, carefully monitoring the area. Soon, they spotted a convoy of Empire ships, heavily loaded with supplies. "There they are," Mark whispered, excitement bubbling in his chest. "Let's move in." With the element of surprise on their side, the Supercarrier swooped down from the clouds, unleashing a barrage of laser fire on the supply ships. Explosions lit up the night sky as chaos erupted in the Empire convoy. "Hit them hard!" Dr. Lane shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The crew cheered as their attacks landed true, taking out one supply ship after another. But the Empire quickly realized they were under attack. Reinforcements began to arrive, and the crew knew they had to act fast. Mark guided the Supercarrier away from the initial explosion, dodging enemy fire with skill. "Keep firing! Don't let them regroup," he urged. As the crew fought bravely, they worked together like a well-oiled machine. They coordinated their attacks, focusing on the enemy ships that posed the greatest threat. With each successful hit, their confidence grew. But just as victory seemed within reach, an Empire warship loomed in the distance. It was massive, and its weapon systems were fully operational. "We need to get out of here!" Dr. Lane shouted. "Regroup and retreat!" Mark maneuvered the Supercarrier to escape, but the warship fired, hitting their engines. The ship shuddered and alarms blared. "Damage report!" Dr. Lane called. "Engine power is down to 50%, Mark replied, fear creeping into his voice. The crew pushed themselves, working frantically to stabilize the ship. They managed to restore some power, but the warship was closing in fast. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Dr. Lane ordered. With quick thinking, Mark piloted the Supercarrier into a tight turn, using the terrain for cover. The warship struggled to keep up, allowing the crew to make their escape. As they flew back to safety, the crew erupted in cheers. They had disrupted the Empire's supply line and lived to tell the tale. The thrill of victory filled the air, and they felt the tide beginning to turn. The crew held their breath as their shots landed, hitting the flagship's weapons. With each successful hit, cheers erupted, but the Empire wasn't finished yet. Reinforcements arrived, surrounding the Supercarrier. "We're outnumbered," a pilot shouted, panic creeping into their voice. "Don't lose hope," Dr. Lane encouraged. "We've come too far to back down now." With determination, the crew fought harder. They executed evasive maneuvers, flying low and fast, avoiding enemy fire while striking back at every opportunity. The Supercarrier danced through the sky, a blur of motion against the chaos of battle. As they engaged the enemy, Dr. Lane spotted a weakness in the flagship's defenses. "That's it! If we can hit that power core, we might take them down! Mark, take us in!" she commanded. The crew rallied behind her, their focus sharp. With the flagship in sight, Mark piloted the Supercarrier with all his skill. "Brace yourselves," he yelled as they flew toward the core. They unleashed everything they had, firing all cannons at the core. The energy built up, and for a moment it felt like time stood still. Then, with a massive explosion, the flagship erupted into flames. The crew erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the cabin. They had done it. They had struck a major blow against the Galactic Empire, but the battle wasn't over. The remaining Empire ships, enraged by the loss of their flagship, turned their attention to the Supercarrier. The crew prepared for the final push, determined to finish what they had started. "Together we can do this," Dr. Lane shouted. "Fight for Earth!" With renewed energy, the crew joined forces once more, pushing through the remaining enemy ships. They fought bravely, showing the Empire that humanity was not to be underestimated. As the last of the Empire ships fell, the crew cheered in triumph. They had won the battle, and for the first time, they felt the tide truly turning in their favor. Dr. Lane looked at her team, pride swelling in her chest. "We did it! Together we've shown the galaxy that Earth will fight back." The crew had proven their strength and unity. They were no longer just a crew, they were heroes. And as they flew back to Earth, they knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. The Galactic Empire would think twice before challenging humanity again.